What is confidence? Confidence is the belief in one's self and ability to succeed. Your thoughts affect your feelings, which affect your behavior. If you think you're confident, you are more likely to behave confidently, which will help increase mental toughness and achieve success, obviously. So how does self-confidence affect performance and play as an athlete? There are several reasons why I wanted to dive into this topic, and there are several discussions and research that dives into self-confidence and its effect on performance. Throughout the research, it is found that self-confidence can affect performance in many different ways. Self-confidence is a foundational building block that can either negatively or positively impact your performance. Throughout the evidence-based research, there were 6 main topics that I found that self-confidence plays a factor in. Obviously, self-confidence itself, anxiety, emotional control, social support, self-talk, which is an imperative mental skill, and oneself or self-awareness. So to get a little bit into self-confidence and performance, self-confidence is crucial to performance. Without your own belief in your ability, it would make it very challenging to succeed in your performance and in what you're doing as an athlete or as a person in general. In a study conducted to understand the validity that confidence has on high-performance athletes, it was trying to understand the role and connection that confidence has in relation to the cognitive, affective, and behavioral responses and effect on high-performance athletes. Throughout the article itself, and on self-confidence, it was evident that within the athlete, as one stated within the article, we knew that we could play the Australian week in and week out, and we could beat them. And having a confidence like that when you go into a game makes a game so much simpler. You're not worried about things, you're not worried about your opponent, you're not worried about what they're going to throw at you, you're not worried about really anything. You're just completely worried about your performance and your team's performance. And as long as we get that right, you're going to win. And so far from that side of it, we're just confident. And the fact that we knew that we weren't going to lose that game. That would be from Hayes, Thomas, Maynard, and Bowden, 2009, an article that I found. So it's clear within the article that self-confidence improves performance, and it was essential to success. In a following article, it discusses the aspect of resiliency and the ability to maintain self-confidence through adversity that one may be going through. The aspect of self-confidence is vital because without the ability to bounce back and have that self-confidence, that you can do that within yourself and face adversity, it will obviously be very tough and challenging for the athlete to face the adversity in the first place without having that self-confidence. As stated, if self-confidence is one of the most influential cognitive detriments of an athlete's performance. That'd be on page 1, Beatty, Hardy, Savage, Woodman, and Callow, 2010. Another article that I found. Along with self-confidence, resiliency is a crucial aspect to the mental skills that can help an athlete deal with adverse times within their performance and obviously to overcome the adversity that they're facing to reach their full potential and full play as an athlete. But before diving in to self-confidence and how it helps with adversity, I found some pretty interesting research and that basically touches on how having that self-doubt to contrary belief is actually important and it will help improve play. Because as we know, too much of anything isn't a good thing. So within this particular research, it was pretty interesting to find out that too much self-confidence can lead to risk-taking actions by athletes that's ill-advised, reduction in goal attainment, which can also lead to complacency. As stated in the article, in summary, the result extend complacency model and support view that some self-doubt can actually help performance. That'd be on page 4, Woodman, Ackhurst, Hardy, and Beatty, 2010. Another article that I found. So it's pretty interesting that too much self-confidence and even self-doubt can actually improve your performance. And too much self-confidence can hinder it. So now to touch and transition onto how confidence affects or plays a role within anxiety. If an athlete is able to have self-confidence, it can help them with their perception and have a mind shift of the anxiety one is experiencing, whether cognitive or somatic, and how that anxiety can either be facilitative or debilitative to their performance. It's very interesting how self-confidence can play a role in the aspect of anxiety and how it's perceived. So for instance, if you have a high self-confidence, when you feel that anxiety, whether it's somatic or cognitive, whether it's pre-performance or in-game performance anxiety, you're able to have a mind shift and a different perception of how that anxiety will play a role in your performance, either positively, which would obviously be facilitative, or negatively, debilitative. So for example, in a comment that I found within an article, performers who have the most confidence in their ability to control themselves and their environment will experience facilitative confidence and interpretations, whereas those who have less control will experience debilitative interpretation. That'd be on page 2, Hanton and Connaughton, 2002, another article that I found. So how does self-confidence also help with one's ability to deal with their emotions? It's pretty interesting. It allows an athlete to be more self-aware of their emotions and their feelings that they deal with within a more positive way, and which in essence will positively affect their performance. The article also dives into an aspect of pre-performance emotions versus in-game emotions, and how that plays a factor in performance, which is pretty interesting. The focus of this particular topic is taken from a cognitive interference, such as one's ability to recognize internal distractions, such as negative thoughts or negative self-talk that you may be happening within yourself. Ultimately, through this study, it was found that self-confidence was not particularly impactful regarding a player's ability to reframe and deal with cognitive and emotional distractions. However, self-confidence proves to be more impactful on in-game emotions rather than pre-performance, which is pretty interesting, seeing as self-confidence should really help, as well as self-awareness should help with both, and obviously your control of your emotions. But like anything in life, social support is really important. So social support and how self-confidence plays a role in social support from teammates and in general is pretty interesting. There are two different aspects of support: perceived and received support. Perceived support is an athlete who perceive that they are supported are less likely to view events and performance as stressful. And received support is the interactional process through which athletes practice as a coping mechanism to reduce negative feelings of stress. The definition of each given by Reese and Freeman are as follows. Perceived support may operate through a psychological or cognitive pathway, whereby individuals with high perceived support are less likely to view events as stressful. Page 3, Reese and Freeman, 2007. And received support may operate through a transactional process as a coping resource that reduces the negative effects of stress. Page 3, Reese and Freeman, 2007, once again. So with higher self-confidence, one can better interpret the social support from their teammates and others in a more positive light that they're getting. With greater self-confidence, support helps to elevate that performance through increased confidence from others. So for instance, in this study, which again is another quote that I found, we wish to determine whether the perceived support available from teammates predicts levels of self-confidence. That'd be page 2, Reese and Freeman, 2009. Thus, however, and how support from teammates influence levels of self-confidence and how that affects an athlete's performance is pretty interesting. So basically, to sum it all up, the more self-confidence you have, you're able to basically interpret that social support and intake it in a more positive light. So now to get to a really, really important aspect of self-confidence, which would be self-talk. Self-talk is a major aspect and influence on self-confidence. As initially stated, thoughts lead to feelings, which lead to actions. If one is practicing positive self-talk of self-confidence, such as "you can do this" or "I got this," it can help them lead to higher self-confidence and improve performance. Additionally, in another article speaking on mental training program, the article entitled "The Effect of a Mental Training Program on Juniors' Pre-Competitive Anxiety, Self-Confidence, and Tennis Performance," the article touches on how tennis self-confidence is imperative to the performance and play on how self-confidence affects confidence. To conclude, self-talk is a crucial aspect to increasing self-confidence and ultimately improving play. So basically, if you have self-confidence, that self-talk that you're going to be speaking to yourself within your own thoughts, that's going to help you improve your play. So to go to self-awareness, which is also a crucial aspect of mental skills, self-awareness, the aspect is very interesting when you talk about self-confidence. It dives into the aspect of the ideal self and how it wants to reach that ideal self. Within self-confidence, it can help ultimately reach your ultimate ideal self if you have more self-confidence. But many are too timid or scared when it comes to actually reaching their ultimate self of what they want to become and see for themselves in the future. Although without having this self-confidence and being aware, you're not able to effectively transition to that ideal self. In the research using self-disciplinary theory, Higgins, 1987, there is an actual and an ideal discrepancy, and a person's actual self does not match the ideal self. The discrepancy is seen as a failure to achieve a positive outcome. Such discrepancies are predicted to result in dejection-related effect, such as sadness, disappointment, or dissatisfaction. When there is an actual discrepancy and a person's actual self does not match the out self or the desired self, the discrepancy is seen as a presence of a negative outcome. Such discrepancies are predicted to result in agitation-related effects such as guilt, worry, and tension. That was another quote I found in page 3 on Beatty, Hardy, and Woodman, 2004, an article that I found. Thus, being far from the ideal self is also associated with poor performance. The way an individual or an athlete views themselves within their ability to be self-aware is crucial to the ability to understand their level of self-confidence and how that plays a role in their performance. So, as you can see, there are many different ways that self-confidence plays a factor, right, in performance. But what's very interesting is the test that is used throughout the studies and throughout the research that I found. So the different tests that are used is the CAI-2, the Competitive State Analysis Inventory, and the TROSCI, which is the Trait Robust of Confidence Inventory. Both of these tests were able to lend more insight into the studies that were conducted within the research to better understand how self-confidence plays a role within performance. So what do we know now, right? It is clear that along with many other mental training techniques, self-confidence is imperative to improve performance. Although too much self-confidence, as we previously discussed, can hinder performance. But what is clear is that self-confidence plays a factor in how to handle the above aspects in sport performance, such as anxiety, emotional control, social support, one's self-talk, self-awareness, and confidence in general. Self-confidence is also necessary regardless of the level of performance or sport. Throughout the research that I've done, it touched on many different levels of sport athletes, from Olympic athletes to junior competitive tennis players to swimmers to even cricket players. And it's also interesting that self-confidence obviously doesn't discriminate on even the different sport that you're going to play. It's imperative to have self-confidence in all sports that you play. So the strength in the research that I found, which is pretty interesting, strength is that it was informative and it helps better to understand how self-confidence plays a role in athletes' performance. The importance of balance of self-confidence, right, because too much of anything isn't a good thing, and the many different aspects that self-confidence influences, as I've mentioned before. But there also are some weaknesses. The weaknesses are, although there's just really no concrete answer, thus it's important to find more tangible evidence on how confidence factors into athletes' performance. But the one thing that is pretty crucial and is pretty imperative throughout the whole entire aspect of the research that I've done is how self-confidence plays a factor in an athlete's performance. It plays a role in their performance. There's no doubt about it. And it can either, as we've mentioned, play a role either negatively and or positively and impact their performance in those ways. Although ultimately there is not enough evidence, as I mentioned, to really give a definitive answer in terms of how it improves or how it doesn't. One thing that is conclusive throughout the research is that self-confidence is important to athletes and ultimately their performance. So here I just have some works cited page that you can go through, and that is pretty much my whole entire topic on self-confidence. It was very interesting, and like I mentioned, to conclude, it's just self-confidence is really important in all walks of life, as well as all walks of athletic performance, regardless of the sport that you play and at the level of you play. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation on self-confidence.